It is about kind of going out alone, just doing it on your own and just standing up for yourself and just being like, this is what I want to do. And that's the concept of the song.
For too long, we've been led to believe that only two types of people can have an extraordinary creative career: creative genius and people who hustle so hard that they're working all the time. Here on the Everyday Talent Podcast, we are shattering that myth. This podcast is built on one truth, which is every one of us can have an extraordinary creative career. The way to get there is not by sacrificing all of ourselves to our work, but rather embracing our authentic selves and carve out unique paths to a fulfilling and joyful creative life. Hello and welcome. My name is Betty. I'm a creative and a coach for creators. I've coached photographers, filmmakers, visual artists, arts consultants, and arts leaders to make intentional career shifts and build thriving independent practices. This podcast is for you if you're looking to cut through the noise of what you should be doing in your creative career and figure out what actually works and matters for you. Before we begin, I want to remind you to subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or your platform of choice. Leave us a rating and review and share this podcast on your social so that more amazing creatives out there can find out about this podcast and feel seen. Welcome back to another episode. How is everyone doing as we wrap up the summer and go into the fall? As we start to go into the last quarter of the year, this is usually the time that we really start evaluate how much progress we've made with our creative project, right? And I thought this is a good time to bring some motivational energy to you. In the fall season, I prepare a whole slot of interviews with really interesting guests from diverse backgrounds and creative disciplines that they have different entry points to their creative path. I think I want to stress that. Because on here you see on the Everyday Time podcast, we're really trying to create a different kind of narrative about what an artistic or creative path looks like. And not all of us have the luxury to start out early and just focus on artistic path alone. Sometimes it's external factor, practical factor, and sometimes it's internal factor. We all know that it takes a lot of courage and confidence for us to embrace our true selves and put ourselves out there, especially when we're independent artists. So today, I think this conversation really encapsulates what it takes to embrace that artistic side of us and finally being able to take up the space and put ourselves out there to own our talent. The guest on today's interview, he's an independent musician. And as you hear in this interview, he's taking quite a journey in his lifetime to embrace his musicality and find his voice in his story, and also then infuse his stories and his experience, his struggle with bullying, his understanding with his sexuality and identity, and his experience as a person who migrated different countries. I have on the podcast here Robbie Finnegan. Robbie Finnegan is a singer-songwriter from Dublin, based in Toronto now, with a passion for sharing his music that inspires and moves and uplifts people. He's got a single that just came out this month, and you're in for a treat. Please stay at the end. There might be a little surprise and special performance for you at the end. Without further ado, let's go into this conversation and really this story about Robbie and his music. Welcome back to another episode of the Everyday Talent Podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Robbie.
Hey, thanks for having me. How are you?
Good, good. I'm excited to have this conversation with you about your career and your music. And you have a new single up released, so that's really exciting. But first, tell us a bit about what you do and how you come to do what you do.
Yeah. Thanks for having me as well. I really appreciate it. My name is Robbie Finnegan. I am a singer-songwriter. I'm an independent singer and songwriter. I currently am a musician. I'm based in Toronto. I'm originally from Dublin, Ireland. I work in construction software. I work in the sales in the industry of that. And yeah, I've been a singer-songwriter the last 5 years, trying to do it on a professional level, I suppose. And yeah, I am currently working on my new EP. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
My project.
Yeah. So just so the audience know, like I connected with Bobby before this like episode recording, and you told me quite a journey that you've taken in your journey to pursue music, and it was full of detours. Can you tell us a bit of like your journey to come to embrace that you have this musical side that you want to develop alongside with your full-time job?
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in Dublin, and music has always been my passion. I always knew I wanted to do music probably since I'm 4 or 5. So I remember my mom got me one of those like electric guitars and one of those karaoke machines for Christmas one year. And I think that's where I started to like love singing in the house. So I was always singing in the house, and growing up, I used to drive my parents crazy because I would sing so much. I think so when I got to kind of high school stage, I went in, I don't know, I'm in first and second year. I don't know what grade that would be for you guys, but I think during that time, I really wanted to get into music more. So I started taking vocal lessons when I was like 14. Although during first and second year, I was pretty much, I got bullied really hard for my sexuality during those 2 years. So I became very unconfident in myself, and I just became very introvert. Although I was like I always had the same friends from when I grew up, so I was always very comfortable around them. But I went to an all boys school in secondary school, and I think I always had a lot of female energy around me growing up. I just felt very comfortable all day on my road. Basically, where I grew up, there was just a lot of girls, so I used to play with a lot of girls growing up. So, when I got into high school, I have 6 brothers as well, by the way. So I'm the youngest of 7, and 1 sister, 6 brothers. So when I got into high school, I think things really started to change for me. I remember the first and second year, I just got really bullied really hard during those 2 years, and I got went really introvert in myself. It really affected my confidence. I got really low self-esteem. So I actually was seeing a counselor in the school, because the school was about to shut down. It wasn't the best of skills, but and I told her I loved music, and they actually put me into vocal lessons. But I told nobody. I didn't want to tell anybody because I was just scared I would have gotten like slagged, or people would like bully you for it. It was just kind of the area that I grew up in. But I remember that's where I really started to love singing. So I took singing lessons for, I think it was like 2 years, and then I stopped going. During high school, I stopped doing music. I just think during those years they were pretty rough for me, so I think it just affected my confidence. So even in school, when I ended up moving school, by the way, a couple of years. So I went into a mixed school, so all my friends were there, so that was really good. But even then, I never even like school plays or stuff with like kind of music classes, I never attended. I didn't have the confidence, and I kind of like, when I look back at it, kind of like I would have loved to do that type of stuff, right? So yeah, that was basically like through high school. So I stopped doing music completely. I just lost my confidence in it. And then I moved to, when I got to 20, just before my 24th birthday, me and 4 of my friends decided to move to Australia. And I think that was kind of when I started to just kind of book the flight. We moved there for 2 years. So it was just very kind of like young, naive, didn't really know what we were doing. That for me was kind of like me like I would say probably running away from my problems.
That in retrospective, that's how you see it. Yeah.
Me trying to escape that. So yeah, I went there for 2 years. I kind of done like a backpacking thing. I worked on a
Mhm.
banana farm for 6 months. I met amazing
Wow.
friends.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was pretty much I feel like that was just a journey of me discovering myself. Those
Hmm.
2 years I had the best time of my life. I would advise anybody young to go and travel. You
Hmm.
just really find out who you are. It was just the best experience for me.
Hmm.
And I was kind of doing little bits of music there and then,
Right.
but obviously wasn't doing it on a professional level.
Hmm.
Then what happened was after the 2 years, I moved back to Ireland.
Hmm.
And I feel like I kind of went back into myself when I went back to Ireland. I just think when like the area that I grew up, now everybody's lovely where I grew up. It is a very community vibe.
Yeah.
But there is just that you have to be able to pick up for yourself growing up
Hmm.
as well. So
Hmm.
I would always pick up for myself. I would never like if people were slagging me, I would always kind of like stand up for myself.
Right.
And I think it's probably because I had like six brothers as well.
Hmm.
Um, but you always had to kind of like have a backbone where I kind of grew up as well.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think that for me going back to Australia or from Australia to Dublin, I kind of went back into my shell a little bit.
Right.
Um, and yeah, I went back into work as normal. I stopped. Again, music was my passion. I just didn't have the confidence to do it.
Right. Yeah.
And I
It's
think,
interesting how music kind of coming and out
yeah,
in your life. Yeah.
yeah. Well,
Hmm.
music has always been my passion. Music is kind of what gets me through anything in life, whether it's like you're having a bad day, you listen to music, or whether it's me songwriting, singing. I find
Hmm.
singing to be actually like therapy for me. I find when I sing, it relaxes me. I don't overthink anything. So that's music has always kind of grounded me.
Right.
Um,
Hmm.
and I think for me as a singer, um, I never really got into songwriting until like about 4 5 years ago. So I
Hmm.
really had to develop myself with that. But when I went back to from Australia, I was just too shy to do it. I
Hmm.
just felt like I'd be if I put myself out there, I was putting myself out to kind of like make a show of yourself basically, like for people to kind of like poke fun at you, right? So I just didn't
Yeah.
have the confidence to do it.
Hmm.
And I think that was just kind of all the trauma stuff that I dealt with as a
Hmm.
teenager. Looking back
Naturally.
now,
Hmm.
you don't really realize that at the time. I didn't even know what anxiety was.
Hmm.
I didn't
Not having
know,
the language to name it. Hmm.
yeah, and I didn't know I had that for a long time.
Hmm.
I just didn't know what that was until I actually started to look into it, and I realized I had a lot of anxiety growing up. Right.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
So what like this word confidence has come up like many times, and you think about that a lot in your journey. Like, at what point did you go? Yeah, now is the time
yeah.
for me to pursue my music.
Yeah, exactly. So sorry to backtrack, but yeah, I went back to Dublin.
Hmm.
I wanted to escape again. For
Hmm.
me, I was just like I still had that travel bug in me. So two of my friends were actually moving to Toronto, and I was quite naive at the time. I was like, Toronto, it's freezing cold there. Like, didn't do my research at all.
Yeah.
And then I kind of decided that I looked into it, and then literally 2 years of moving back to Dublin, I moved to Toronto.
Hmm.
So it was also like me kind of always like escaping
Hmm.
kind of thing, running from my problems, which probably wasn't the best thing at the time.
Hmm.
'Cause no matter what, you always have to deal with yourself eventually. Like
Yes.
in life, you always, no matter what problems you have as a teenager, a kid, adult life, you do have to deal with them. Otherwise, it just gets locked into the back of your head, and that's where like a lot worse things happen for you, right? So, um, but yeah, so I moved to Toronto, and then I think I was here for like 5 months, and I'm one of those people that I'm like I never want to look back like I wish I'd done this, right? So that was always on my mind, is that music is my passion. It's just something that I have to do. So I think for me, I just kind of was like, do you know what? I'm just doing this. And I think it was just the fact that I moved away. I don't think if I was in Ireland, I would have done it, because I felt like when you're being judged, for me, it really affected me back then. So I was scared to like, what would people think? And like now it's like, I'm so far from that. Like I really don't care what people think anymore. But back then that really affected me. And I think it was just because I was like bullied growing up, that just really affected my self-esteem. So that really got to me. Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's funny that like this, like in some way, not moving away does give you that freedom.
Yeah.
The distance of like not thinking about like judgment.
Yeah, exactly. I had that like no judgment, and that's what I loved. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do this. So first of all, I'll kind of backtrack to that as well. Obviously, being an independent artist, I feel like me as a singer, I was never going to get like noticed because I was too introverted. I was never going to get like a record deal, or I never had the full experience. I didn't have any experience, right? So I was just like, what do I need to do for me to make this happen? Right. So previously I've always worked in sales as well. I was never growing up as well. I was never the most academic person. I was much more creative. So I kind of was, when I finished school, I was in and out of college courses. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I finished school when I was 16, which was like really young. I don't think anybody really knows what they want to do.
No.
So I went before Australia as well. I done like a visual merchandising kind of a marketing course for 2 years. I got a diploma in that. But when I came back from Australia as well, I got into a really good company. They were a cigarette company, but it was they put me in as like, I just had like an entry level kind of job, but they gave me like a customer service role at the time. But they gave me these targets to work towards like sales, and like there was no like incentive with it. But they used to give me this if you hit this number, like you would get like a half day on a Friday. So I was just like, if I have a target, and that's where I started to know I was like good in sales. So I was like, if I have a target, I'm gonna work hard for it, and I would always hit those targets. So when I moved here, I kind of didn't. I was kind of in and out of jobs, like part-time jobs, just for the first year, and I kind of started to get a bit into like meditation and stuff like that. And I used to write down every single day my goals. Of like what I want to achieve, how I'm going to get there, what I need to do to get there every day. So I've like probably like 2 books full of like the same thing for like 2 years straight of what I used to write.
Right.
So I was kind of like, what do I need to do for me to help my music career, but also for me to be able to progress in a career? I kind of wrote down what I'm good at, what I'm not good at. And I'm very good in that way, is that like I have a great work ethic and I have common sense, and I knew those two together would get me places. I just needed to apply it to the right career for myself. So I kind of went back and I was like, what am I really good at? And I was like, I'm good at sales. That's what I'm going to do. This was like 6 years ago. So I got my resume together, start applying into sales jobs, and I got a job in a company called Construct Connect, or a construction software sales company. Well, they're a construction company. They basically track all the construction industry from planning stages up to bidding stages in Canada and the US. So I remember I went in there, and I went in for the interview, and I went in for a BDR role, which is like level entry kind of job. I had like a lot of confidence going in there. So the guy at the time gave me actually the consultant role straight off the bat.
Wow.
So I went in there. I started in that company. I was there for 4 years. I ended up progressing. I had like 3 promotions within those 3 years. I was hitting my numbers every single month. And then that year I was like, right, I know what I'm good at my job. I enjoy this role. This works for me. Now I need to start focusing on my music. So I created like a YouTube channel, and I started doing like YouTube covers just to kind of get myself out there.
Yeah.
And one of the guys that I worked with, he was a guitarist, so he said he'd help me out. So I just started posting like guitar covers every week. Then I met with a producer in Toronto, and I feel like I was so naive at the time when I came to the music industry because I didn't know anything. So, and I if anybody is trying to get into the music industry, I just think it's so important to do your research. There's tons of podcasts, tons of like YouTube videos that show you as an independent artist how to market yourself, because that's the most important thing. And I feel like it's like only now I'm realizing this. So I've done it a bit backwards. But I worked with a producer, and I released a song which is my fourth single, Free. And that was my first kind of experience into writing music. But that song, Free, is literally about pretty much my life of like moving away. Like if you actually listen to those lyrics, it's very much applies to kind of what I'm talking about now, which is kind of funny. But yeah, I started working with a producer, and he done that track, but I ended up kind of getting myself into a bit of a hole. I ended up paying a lot more than what I should have for that. But you start to realize this over time of like people that you're working with. So I think that was definitely a learning experience for me.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then once I released, so I got that song together, and once I released it, that actually charted top 5 in Ireland iTunes. So it's funny, it's like everybody really supports me at home, and that's what I love about people at home, is that they really are supportive, and it's such a good community vibe where I live as well. So it was just great, amazing to have people that actually wanted to support me as well, and that kind of gave me the confidence to start doing music after that as well.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's interesting this aspect of like your full-time job in sales on the surface doesn't seem to be connected to like the music itself, but it is very connected in terms of like you finding your confidence as a person. Like you kind of outline to me like I found my strengths, and then I know I heard that you're a very goal-oriented person in that process.
Yeah.
And then you apply the same principle to essentially starting your independent music career, which is what are the 5 moves, or like what are the next steps I need to do in order to get there, and I know that I can do it. Yeah. How do you see that, like in terms of like your relationship between your full-time job and your creative endeavor?
Comes down to work ethic. Yeah. I think for me, it's so important to apply yourself. If you're going to do something, you have to commit yourself 100% to it. And I think me writing my goals down every day was like such a good motivator, because it reminds you like nothing's going to happen for you if you're just going to sit there and just expect things to come. It doesn't work like that, right? So that for me, writing my goals down every single morning just made me want to apply myself and just really work hard and motivate myself, right? So I think if I didn't do that, I don't think I would have even got where I am now, in terms of my career and my music, like in terms of where I am in my independent music journey, as well as my actual career at the moment. So I think it's just really about applying yourself, work ethic, and just making a plan and just sticking to it. You know, it's so easy to just get distracted by things, but I really think if you just focus yourself and put 100%. Now, again, I'm still not where I need to be. I don't think anybody is, but
it's always a journey. Yeah,
it's always a journey. So, but the fact that if you even when I look back at those notes, it's funny because I've ticked off a lot of the stuff,
seems very satisfying.
It is, because it also allows you to, I think for me, with my career as well, I love my job and I love what I do, and I think that's what really it comes down to. You really have to love what you do in order to be motivated. Otherwise, it's hard. We've all been in those jobs where we don't like and we hate. We have to wake up every morning and go into it, and there's nothing worse than doing something that you're not happy in. Now, I know everybody doesn't obviously have that opportunity, but it's nice when you find something that you really enjoy doing. I think it
Mm.
just it's more satisfying to you and just more rewarding as well, right? So
Yeah. So
yeah,
you like both. You like your both full time job and you like your music career. It's
yeah,
not that like necessary that we have to hate out. I think there's sometimes this narrative that like, oh, we hate our full time job so much. That's why we do creative endeavor.
yeah,
It,
yeah,
it doesn't
exactly.
have to be that way. Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that way. And I think I for me, I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not, and I work to my strengths. And I think that took a long time for me
Mhm.
to figure that out.
Mhm.
But I think once you kind of do a bit of discovery on yourself and realize kind of what you're good at, how to apply your strengths, I think it can really be helpful for you in the long run, right?
How do you? How did you discover what you're good at and not good at?
By just applying myself to things. Just so I think I
Just
just like
learning by doing, right?
I before I was even in like this job that I'm doing, like growing up, I was always working. I was working since I'm 14 years of age.
Right.
I have literally tried, you name it, I've tried it in terms of like jobs. Like
Wow.
I've applied myself to. I was like ton of jobs that I had growing up as a teenager. So even into my 20s, when I was in Australia as well, I think I was worked on a banana farm, and it was for 6 months, and it was 40-degree heat, and I was spading, I was cutting trees down
Yeah.
for 8-9 hours a day. And I think that was like 5 days a week. And I was like, I was this like, when I was 20, I was like this really, really like, I was like under 100 pounds. I was like,
Right.
I was just this tiny little guy. So
Mhm.
I think that honestly taught me work ethic. I was like, I can do, after doing this for 6 months, I can do anything. And I think that those 6 months it was like, it's called Tully. It was basically in the
Mhm.
middle of nowhere.
Mhm.
You sit and you're in a hostel where like there was a ton of like Irish, Canadians,
Mhm.
people from the UK, and it was just we
Mhm.
all, and you would get a coach to your banana farm every day. So I
Wow.
think that I know it's like very random, but that was honestly the best experience and really taught me work ethic.
Right. If you
I
could do
think,
that for 6 months, yeah, you can do
but
a
I
lot.
think
Yeah.
it's not even that. It was when I
Mhm.
came back to like into a normal 9 to 5, I
Mhm.
was just like, this is so easy to compare to what I was doing. Do you
Mhm.
know that way? So I kind of compared it to that, and I think that helped me in terms
Yeah.
of like any job that I would get. I was just like, it's a lot easier than the job I had back then. So
Yeah. So let me ask a logistic questions. And like, because a lot of artists out there who are kind of similar to you, they have a job.
mhm.
Part of the struggle is that like by the time they finish
Yeah,
their job, they are like exhausted.
yeah, yeah,
Like, so how do you on a day to day manage your time
yeah,
between your job
yeah,
and your music?
yeah. That's a great question. I think it's just managing and prioritizing things.
Mm.
Right. So I have a little home studio as well. Um, I think for me, just to go back to after I released my song, I released a couple of songs after that. And I started working with some other producers. And it was such a good experience for me.
Mhm.
I don't want to backtrack too much either, but I just kind of want to show you how I kind of like manage that time.
Right.
Um, for me, I think releasing music that I previously released, it's not, I don't feel like it showcased me vocally or as an artist or even songwriting. I feel like I'm only getting to the stage now of the type of music and the type of artist that I want to be. I feel like I'm only getting there now. And that
Okay.
takes years.
Yeah.
And if you ask any independent artist or any artist in general,
Yeah.
releasing music takes a long time because you're still figuring out. You're saying now some people can get it overnight. For me, it was a discovery journey. I'm still working out the sound that I wanted to create. So my music was like very random. I was like releasing like kind of a pop folky song with Free, and then I was releasing like a hip hop kind of song. So it was
Right.
just kind of like dabbling in sounds and different songs, and even the writing. It's not that I don't like the music. I released it. Obviously, I do like, but it's just like I just know where I'm at now versus back then. But
Every
again,
single like EP you improve. Yeah.
yeah, or every single, because you're not going to release as an independent artist. I'm not going to release an EP until I have an audience. You're still
Right.
building your audience, right?
Mhm.
So But just to go back to what you were asking me about prioritizing my time, is that you've 8 hours in your job, you do that, and then evenings I spend once ever. My thing was to always spend 2 to 3 hours on music in the evenings. So whether that was going over songs, writing songs, learning different things about the industry, learning about marketing, learning about distribution, like I would do that every single evening. So it's like anybody trying to, in a full-time job that's going to school or that has kids or whatever it is, right? You just make the time, and that's what I would do every day.
Every day. That's discipline right there. Yeah.
I had to, because I didn't know anything about the music industry, and I'm still learning. I don't know everything, but you just learn as you go. And it's not like, for anybody that wants to get into this industry as well, you have to invest in yourself. And that's why.
What does that mean for you?
Everything. You have to invest in your creativity. You have to invest in financially. You're the business. And I know that can seem a bit, to people that might seem a bit kind of like you're investing into yourself, but you really are investing into yourself. And it's not, I think for independent artists, it's so hard to put yourself out there, right? So I admire anybody that is coming into this industry or in anything to put themselves out there and to go after what they want to do in life. That's not an easy thing. It's so easy to get ridiculed or have people's opinion about what you're doing or judgment. So the fact that anybody is investing in themselves and really want to develop themselves, that to me is like huge. I love to see people do that.
Yeah, if I may jump in, I love that point, because I also like believe that investing in yourself, whether it's professional development, whether it's like in the case like I do film, you do music, like there's investing in equipment down to things like that, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's like you and I share the commonality that we do like multiple things. And it's actually, I wonder whether you feel the same. It actually gives me comfort now that I have that like kind of financial safety from things that I do, that sometimes I feel like I can invest in myself a bit more in the creative side. And I think that's actually a good encouragement for people who have built a good full-time job in some career that ensure them to be in that spot in their life, then branch out to pursue their passion. It's never too late that way.
100%. I think, and again, when I say financially as well, it's you need to invest in yourself at the beginning, but there's tons of funding out there. So I'm actually getting funding now at the moment, which I'm very grateful for.
Awesome.
Well, it's in the works at the moment. So that took a long time, right? You still had to invest in yourself. And that's why I kind of wanted to, I was like, what's the career that's going to make me a nice kind of lifestyle, but also be able to invest into my career. And I think that's the good thing about sales, is that you are in control of your salary, which I love. But it's also, I think now, like, to kind of go back a bit as well, when I was releasing those singles, it went into COVID, right?
Right.
Everybody went home based. And I was living more north, and I ended up moving back downtown. But when I moved back downtown, a lot of my friends moved home. I had a lot of friends. So that, during those 2 years, that was really where I got really depressed. I felt like I was just so alone here. I just didn't have anybody. And it really affected me. And I think my best friend, who lives in Vancouver as well, we would literally speak on the phone every single day. She was in the same predicament. She was working from home as well, right? So I think, and like everybody, affected everybody during those 2 years. But I think for me, that was really where all the issues that I had grown up, I really felt like I had to start to deal with my problems. I really felt like it started to affect me there. So I started getting therapy, and I never got therapy before. And I think, and it's such people have such a stigma around that, of like going to speak to someone about your problems, which there should be no stigma. There's nothing wrong with going and wanting to help yourself and speak about how you feel and kind of get that off your chest. It's a help. It's
Absolutely.
for your own development, right? So I think that when I started to go to that, that's where I started to actually kind of come into myself. And that was like only a few years ago, right? So I felt like I had a lot of, and when I say issues, I think that the 2 years of when I was like really bullied really hard during those 2 years, I wasn't always kind of bullied as a kid. I was always, like I said, a lot. I didn't always kind of like have a ton of friends. I had like a small group of friends, and I still have them same friends. So I've always stuck with the same people. But I think those 2 years of that bullying, that really affected me to a level of kind of like I got really depressed in myself. I was like having really dark thoughts. And I was only 14 and 15. Like I wanted to like didn't think life was worth living, like it was that dark for me, you know. And I remember, and for school really affected me as well. I think I was right by my school, so I used to run out of school every day. So I'd hop the fence, and my teachers be knocking at the door looking for me. My mom would be out, and I would like hide in the house. And I think one year I missed like 30 full days and 30 half days, and they got sent a letter to my house, and I hid it from my mom because I didn't want her to know. And I never told people that was happening to me. I was getting like bullied as well. So I think that just really affected me later in life. And you don't realize when you're the stuff that happens to you as a teenager, whatever it is, the trauma of anything, it really affects you later in life. And I think for a lot of people during COVID, that's kind of really affected me, where I knew I had to kind of deal with kind of like stuff that I grew up with, and I just kind of put it into the back of my head.
It came out like I think I hear that like all those things were always there, and then COVID, in a bad way, like in a negative way, it gave an opportunity for you to explore those things. And how do you, like, you know, if we shift gear a bit to talk about your music and your new single, like how do those themes, all the themes that we talk about, your experience being bullied, your sexuality, and just your journey of migrating from one country to another, how do those themes like take place in your music?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think now, just to kind of skip ahead as well, now, so I released those kind of singles in the past. I was kind of figuring out the sound. Then I started working with an amazing producer called John Carcar, and he just really kind of helped me discover the sound that I wanted to make. And my song Lone Wolf, that is actually like, when people listen to that, they probably just think it's a sound, but if you listen to the first verse of that song, it's about actually me being bullied in school. So it was like me going in every single day, like the wolves are gonna attack, and I was like the lone wolf in the situation. That actually stems about the stuff that I grew up with. And then when it goes into the second verse, it's like about how I've regained my confidence, how I'm being authentic to myself. And that's like, and when I song right now, I feel like I've really developed with that. It's always authentic. I used to be very direct in my songwriting, whereas now I'm very much like, I use it kind of a narrative. So like Lone Wolf, and I kind of create the concept around that. Right. But I feel like now it's like the music, the sound, that I'm so excited. And I'm the most confident I've ever been in my life. I really, and it just took a long time to really work on myself, but I feel like I've just really, my self-esteem, my confidence, I don't care anymore. And I think that's maybe an age thing as well. Like you have to, like, if I'm happy and it fulfills me, I really don't care what anybody else thinks. And I think that was always putting kind of step back for me. And also career-wise as well, I actually developed my career. So the people that I initially worked with in that company took me over about 2 years ago as the senior account exec now. So I'm overseeing pretty much a lot of the sales department in my new company. It's a US-based company, and they're amazing. It's one of the best. It's the American Institute of Architecture, and they've been, honestly, they really understand their employees, and just kind of like are really supportive of me doing music on the side and stuff like that. And I'm home based as well,
Yeah.
so that gives you a great work-life balance.
Flexibility. Yeah.
Flexibility, exactly.
Yeah.
And I've learned so much about the industry. Like I've learned about marketing, distribution, publishing, kind of working with different artists, working with different musicians, working with different producers. I feel like the last 5 or 6 years was basically my skill, because I never got to do that as a teenager. So I've been playing catch up. But I also feel like now I'm doing everything's meant to be, because I wouldn't have been able to do what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
10, 11 years ago, right? Because I know like some people now like are going in like getting signed at 16, 17, 18. And if that had been me back then, I think I would have just like crumbled. So I feel like
everyone's journey is different, because like the early to fame kind of like narrative that is so saturating our media doesn't necessarily work for everybody's life journey.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for me as well, it's like you have to kind of really, music should be like music's my passion. So I just feel like it's always something that I'm going to do regardless of the outcome. I mean, the goal is never to like I mean, it would be great for my music to be hugely successful, but my goal is to just release music and to have an audience, right? So people that can listen to it. And that's really what I'm trying to create at the moment. And I want people to understand when they're listening to my music that I want them to be able to relate to the sound, right? So, and a lot of my new records that I'm working on, like I'm kind of single at the moment. I'm in like that dating life at the moment, and like one of the tracks is like kind of like a UK garage dance sound, and it's kind of like, so it's like really changed, and I feel like I've really grown as a musician and the sound that I want to create, and even vocally I've like really worked on it. Like I knew I always had a strong voice, but I feel like I found my voice and the kind of sound that I want to create, which is really exciting.
I mean, I don't know whether other people have said this to you, but like it's interesting that you now tell me that like the story behind your new single Lone Wolf is because of the experience bullying. When I like, as I talked to you, or when I heard that, there's also this imagery that I have, which is when someone is pursuing their artistic passion, it often feels like a lone wolf kind of journey.
I love that. I love that you have, that's what I love. I love getting people's opinion of what they think of it. And I think that's for me, it is that kind of journey. And that's what I want people to be able to relate to it. It is about kind of going out alone, just doing it on your own and just standing up for yourself and just being like, this is what I want to do. And that's the concept of the song. And I think that's where the fourth verse is kind of very like being beaten down. Then it talks about like the lone wolf going in, gaining your confidence. And then it's like, if you listen to the bridge on that song, which I love, it's like, I got myself out of the corner, I'm the exception to the rule. And I love that lyric. It just kind of says that like, I done this, I've gained my confidence, and I'm owning it and just kind of going out doing it, right? So that's kind of what I love about that track when you listen to the lyrics on that.
Yeah. Well, we definitely want the audience to go listen to the track right away after this interview. But can we get a little preview of this amazing song?
I can do like a little verse for you.
Great, perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Can they hear my heart be pounding? Can they see it in my face? Hunters gather all around me. Can I keep up with the pace? Begging me into a corner. Got me up against the wall. Loaded threats and wicked torture. Trying to make me feel small. There we go.
Amazing, beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm excited for the audience to listen to the full single.
I hope they enjoy it.
So where can like the audience find your music, or if they want to connect with you, how do they find you?
And thanks so much for having me on this as well. This is my first podcast, so very grateful.
Yay! Yeah.
So yeah, you can find me on my Instagram. It's Robbie_Finnegan_, and that's FINNEGAN. And then you can see all my links from my Instagram. You can look me up on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, pretty much any streaming platform. You can also see my music video and all my music content on my YouTube channel. It is Robbie Finn as well, so you can catch all of my music stuff there.
Yeah, and we'll put those links all in the show notes. Thank you so much for this conversation and sharing candidly about this journey that you have come to embrace with your music, your career, Robbie. All the best with your musical career and everything else.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Did you enjoy today's conversation? I'm so thankful for Robbie being so open to share his journey of growing up and his every single step of the way, how he got to embrace his confidence and build this work ethics in working on his music. I have to say, after the conversation, I was very struck. Like, even though as like a fellow creative, I also honor creative things, but I was quite struck by his dedication when he said like he just make no compromise and work on his music every day for 2-3 hours. I was quite inspired. I hope you are too. And thank you, Robbie, for performing for us at the end of that interview. So beautiful. I hope all of you can check out his story, his single, and connect with him. Thank you so much for listening today. As always, please continue to support the Everyday Talent Podcast on whichever platform that you're listening to this, whether it's YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or platform of your choice. And please share this podcast with your friends. There are more amazing creatives out there that are carving out their own paths and deserve to have a community and a platform that see them for who they are. Thank you so much for your support. I will see you on the next episode.